Hello, and welcome to the Our Prenup Lawyer podcast, where you and I get to learn more about prenups as I interview professionals from the fields of family law, couples counseling, and wealth management. I'm your host, Libby Garabedian. Let's get started. The information provided in this podcast is prepared by Our Prenup Lawyer for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. The information is not intended to create an attorney-client relationship. This is not legal advice or a substitute for obtaining legal advice from an attorney. A person listening or watching should not rely upon it in any manner without engaging professional counsel. The podcast is intended to communicate general information and, because recorded, may not be current. On this episode of Our Prenup Lawyer, I'm joined by Deveney Wells-Gibson. Deveney, known as the Prenup Queen, is a San Diego-based attorney who helps couples strengthen their relationships through clear, compassionate, and forward-thinking prenuptial, postnuptial, and cohabitation agreements. Through her practice, she guides individuals with a blend of legal precision and emotional intelligence, making one of the most intimidating legal processes feel accessible and empowering. Welcome, Deveney.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you for being on the podcast. I'm excited to learn more about the Prenup Queen.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I love talking about myself, obviously. And then I love talking about prenups and then how it helps, help couples have stronger foundations for their marriage. But a little about me. I am originally from Texas, and I specifically came out to San Diego, California, for law school, to which I graduated and I began practicing in family law, so divorces, custody battles, domestic violence, restraining orders, basically uncoupling couples. And through that practice, I've come to realize a lot of this similar patterns that has led to couples divorcing. And I also realized that I didn't feel really aligned to it, even though I knew it was very purposeful and I really adored my clients. It didn't feel like I was rightfully aligned. And so I made the shift to now focusing on prenups, postnups, cohab agreements to help people avoid sitting at a divorce attorney's office. So how can I help them have stronger partnerships, or how can I, if they end up getting divorced, which God forbid no one wants to happen, but the divorce rate is fairly high. If they end up going down that road, how can I make this as painless as possible for them? So there's not a lot of resentment, a lot of spitefulness, because also, let's be honest, that's what keeps a lot of divorce attorneys in practice is the resentments and just like the tit for tat, nickel and diming. And so, yeah, so that is how I became me. On the side, I like to dance. So if anyone ever follows me on Instagram, they will see me dancing in heels on Instagram because I also do have a life outside of the legal world.
That's wonderful. It's good that, you do have your own things going on and it's not just prenups all the time.
Right.
But before you made that shift to the prenup focus, what kind of trends did you notice with divorcing couples?
Financial issues. And there was a lot of, the major thing was women being like, well, I don't have access to credit cards. I don't have access to the bank statements, or they don't know how to pay certain bills. Like they were just completely what we call the out spouse. They were just completely uninvolved in their finances. And that was just such a shocker to me because I'm very type A and it's like I have to know every little thing. But it is actually pretty common for women to just kind of give their husbands the financial power. Like it's like I trust them, they'll figure it out. They're doing what's in the best interest of us. And then they become completely uninvolved. And then when they found themselves in the divorce process, it's like they were just completely unaware of their assets, their debts. It was astonishing. And then the other trend that I saw was secret accounts, which sometimes I get it, like especially when we have DV happening, that's one of the things I will tell my client is you need to go do X, Y, and Z, and you're doing it in secret because now we're planning. But outside of that, like secret credit cards, secret debts, things that they didn't know that their partner was doing, also probably because they just weren't involved. And like here in California, we're a community property state, and there's other states that are community property states, which does mean that the presumption is these debts that you're accumulating during the marriage, they're community.
Right.
So now you're responsible for half of a debt that you didn't know about. So that was one of the trends I was also seeing. And then, of course, this was more so from my male client's perspective, a lot of incompatibility when it came to finances. Um, I saw from my clients that the men were um, they had plans, they had goals, they knew what they were trying to do with their money. And in my cases, the woman liked to shop a lot and she liked to spend a lot. And they were just no longer compatible. And on that sense, it is, to me, it would be unfair for someone who was sitting there saving, 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 planning for retirement, only for their retirement to be split in half to someone who didn't, put in that same time and energy to save and wasn't as disciplined with it. So those were the three major trends. So they're mostly financial because if infidelity happens, infidelity occurs and it's on you whether you want to leave or not. But finances is something that we do have a little bit more control of.
For the out spouse, like you mentioned, do you think it's a lack of financial literacy that kind of led them to having their partner take the reins or something else?
I think I think the lack of financial literacy is a part of it, but I also think it's just how we're shaped as women, and I think it's just how like society kind of frames it to think that men are just better with money. And so
Right.
to give it to your husband and he will take care of it. Even though stats do show that women do invest better than men. But I think it's just society. I think that's the biggest part of it. And sure, I could say financial literacy, but I think that also just goes back to society. So women, we've been taught primarily to be like the domestic caretakers and to take like those types of roles. Whereas the men, they're the leader, they're the provider, they're the ones who should be handling those things. So we take a step back on the finances, which in turn leads to a lack of financial education. So it can be both, but I think eventually it's going to stem from society and how we've just been taught.
Right. Now, with obviously those outside influences coming in and informing how you do your work, what kind of approach do you take with prenuptial agreements with your clients?
I think my approach is a little bit different than most because technically speaking, legally speaking, I should say, when I'm doing it, I can only represent one party. I could represent both, but then there's like, it gets it's a gray area, and I just don't. So, best practice is that I can only represent one person. But I think the prenup process needs to be extremely collaborative. The last thing I want is for couples to feel like they're pitted against each other before they enter into a marriage. And so, usually, what I'll do is after I have my consult with a client, I'll be like, okay, bring your person in and let's talk about this. So now it's usually us three, especially if they're not yet sure they're going to get an attorney, depending on what provisions we put in there. Um, Now it's us three like talking it out, and I'm asking a bunch of hypothetical questions. I'm asking what their goals and their dreams are because I have to tailor this prenup to what it is that they're trying to achieve. And so it makes it feel more collaborative and it makes them feel like they're both buying in and they're both making these changes to these marital laws that's going to fit their unique marriage. So it's not a situation where I just sit with one person, type it all out, and then say, here, give this to your person, good luck. It's a bring them in. We're all in this together. High School Musical. I'm dating myself, but um, yeah, we're all in this together. And we're going to sit here and we're going to make this document that's going to feel fair for both of you guys. So that's typically how I like to do it.
That's wonderful. Not shutting someone out or saying, these are the terms, it's a take it or leave it. This is actually a document that's gonna, be beneficial to both parties like it should be.
Exactly. Exactly.
Now, do you think with the rise of influencer couples, that has made prenups more necessary or just performative?
Mm. That's a great question, actually. I would think, I really don't know. My thoughts are I'm going to assume that it's a little bit more performative than necessary because I continue to, as an attorney, there's a big educational piece that I have to give to people when it comes to prenups. And so when they see couples do or influencers doing it, they're probably then just getting a prenup because they probably just think they're protecting it against divorce or whatever the case may be. But a prenup can serve so many other purposes. Um, but at the same time, I'm running into people who are saying, um, like, well, I don't really need one because I'm not wealthy. I don't really need one for whatever reasons. This is going on a tangent from your question. But I just say that to mean I feel like some people are getting a prenup, although they might have good intentions, and it's performative because they don't understand like the full purpose that a prenup serves. Like they're not fully educated on what the prenup is going to do for them. They probably heard someone say you need a prenup, so they just went and got a prenup. And but it's at least they did it. At least
Mhm.
they did it. And hopefully they um didn't just use like an online service that just churns out a prenup. Hopefully, they actually sat down with an attorney who explained to them how this prenup is going to serve them even during their marriage, because there's more things that a prenup can do. So that way, they're getting the full benefit of a prenup.
Right. There's some misconceptions sprinkled in there, and even though it's a great financial tool, you got to understand why you're getting it, right?
Exactly.
So now I want to run through some other questions about prenups with you, and you tell me whether it's a red flag or a green flag, okay? So your partner refuses to discuss the possibility of a prenup, red or green flag?
I want to say red flag. I'm going to say red flag. But as long as in like completely refuses, red flag. If he's at least open to it and he's willing to hear you out so you can also give him education, then we're good. Because I know prenups have negative stereotypes to them, and there's just that educational piece that's missing.
Right. So if they're open, good. If they just say no and don't want to hear about it, red.
Red and run. Run.
Okay. Your partner throws in a new clause right before you're supposed to sign your prenup.
Um, Red flag, especially here in California, because there is a 7-day waiting period. So anytime there's going to be any substantive changes, it restarts that clock. So um yeah, red flag. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, your partner wants to include a guaranteed alimony clause in the event that one of you decides to give up your job and stay at home.
Mm, Depends. I need
Okay.
more facts. I need more facts because I do believe, my opinion, that if someone is going to be a stay-at-home parent and they are sacrificing their careers and their job skills and being in or their retirement contributions because they're not working, I believe there needs to be some type of compensation or there needs to be um, a fallback for spousal support if they end up not going back to work because they're still caring for the kid. So it just depends. I would need more facts, like how long? Is this like 10 years after being a stay-at-home and they had the ability to go back and everyone assumed they would be going back? Or do the kids have disabilities and that's why you can't go back? Like there's so many questions. Um, so I'm gonna say yellow flag because it could go either way.
Okay. I like that. And our last one, after 10 years of marriage and two kids, your spouse thinks it would be a good idea to get a postnup and include an inheritance protection to outline what assets will be passed down to their children.
Absolutely. Green flag, sorry. Green flag. Um, I'm all for that because I mean, the theory would be I could see someone saying it's not necessary because they're also the other person's kids. So that way, if anything happens and that other person were to get the inheritance, they would take care of the kids. Sure. But sometimes you just want to give things to your children. You want to create a special type of trust for them, whatever the case may be. And in order to do that, you're going to have to carve out what's going to be your separate property so you can then do that in an estate planning document. So, I'm all for it as long as we're being honest and transparent and there's nothing shady happening. I'm all for it. I'm all for taking care of babies. I love kids.
And how would that affect a couple if they split up and got remarried? Then that doesn't, those assets go directly to the children, not to the other spouse, right?
Not entirely. So, well, hold on. And it depends. Okay, so I know people hate when lawyers say that. It depends. Depends on the facts. Because some things can go from being separate to somewhat community, depending is there commingling involved? Is there is the marriage now like really reliant on these separate assets? And that's where people have to be careful. And this is also why it's important people have an attorney to explain these things. But yes, if we're remarrying and um, meaning we're about to have a blended family, you should absolutely have a prenup to be able to leave assets to your kids. Because once something turns community, your spouse is going to take it when you pass. That
Okay.
like point blank period, your spouse is going to take it. If it's separate, then part of it now I don't practice probate, so I might be like slightly off. But if I recall correctly, if it's separate, your spouse might get part of it and then the rest would go to your children. So if you want the majority of it or all of it to go to your kids, you're gonna have to carve it out saying it's separate, even if you use it for the benefit of the community, it will never turn community. And that way, it allows for you to then go do a will or a trust or whatever type of estate plan. So that way, you can leave it to your children.
Okay. That makes sense. So having that working in tandem, your prenup, your estate plan to understand where things will land.
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest things I love to talk about for a prenup. I try not to make the prenup completely focused on if a divorce happens because I want people to feel like they're not planning for divorce because that's a lot of people's fear when it comes to prenups. And so estate planning is one of the biggest things that I do talk about because that is also where people go wrong in estate planning. They think just putting something in a trust is going to change the characterization of it, and it's not. You have to have the prenup first before you put it in that trust. And so, yeah, that's again, education piece, but it is something that I like to talk about.
Now, what types of terms or clauses don't hold up in a prenup when it's reviewed?
Everyone asks about infidelity clauses. I swear, everyone asks about them. And they're going to be a hit and miss. And it's going to be a hit and miss depending on what state you also live in, because, like here in California, it's a no fault state. The court could care less that there was infidelity happening. And the only time infidelity might come into play is if you are asking for reimbursement because your spouse used community funds for the affair.
Okay.
That's pretty much it. Otherwise, the court could literally care less, just split the community in half, be done, live your separate lives. Um, but the emotional side, the mental side is not that cut and dry like the legal side of it is, right? And so I understand why people are wanting an infidelity clause. Um, but when it starts to go, when the infidelity becomes so, or the clause becomes so punitive, a court might not uphold it. If it starts to look like it's now incentivizing divorce, meaning like, okay, you found out that this person cheated on you, and once you file, you're getting everything. It's probably not going to hold up. And so you have to be very careful about how you're wording it. So I've done a few infidelity clauses, but I also explain to my clients like there's a possibility this might not even be anything. Um, but again, it's only if it gets challenged, right? Which we
Mhm.
also have a no contest clause, a no challenge clause in there. So they might not challenge it, and they just might say there's an infidelity clause, and this is what it is. Um, so we have to word it very carefully to just say this is what infidelity is. So define it. Make sure we're all on the same page on what infidelity is. and that they actually did it. And then two, um, what the consequence would be. So is it they owe you $1,000, $2,000, whatever for every occurrence? Is it that they lose ownership of the home or a percentage of the ownership of the home? It's no longer 50-50, now it's 60-40. Like whatever it is, we have to put it in there, but it can't be extremely punitive because then that's where it's going to get murky.
Right. So language and then possible consequences is what's going to really determine if it's going to be upheld.
Right. Yeah.
Have you ever had to tell a client that they shouldn't sign a prenup?
I have, mm, I have not. I have told clients that they need to negotiate their prenup
Okay.
and they need to change these terms. Only once have there's only been one situation where a client ended up not getting married because this is where I gotta be careful because sometimes I just be giving people my opinions and they don't ask for it. Um, I was pretty sure she was using him for his money. Um, and I'm pretty sure they ended up not getting married because they never signed the prenup. Unless somehow she convinced him and then he just lied to me, whatever. But um, there's only been one time where I literally sat there and said, I like this marriage clearly is not aligned. The way she was going about negotiating and it just rubbed everybody the wrong way. But otherwise, it's more so you need to negotiate this. And if this person is going to be adamant about this particular provision, then let's get creative over here to protect you on this. So there's always a give and take. And that's something that people have to understand.
Yeah, being able to try to make it the best situation for both parties. Right. Now, what is one thing you want listeners to remember from our conversation?
Hmm. What's one thing I want listeners to remember? Um, there's so many. I guess the best one would be that a prenup can serve more, has a bigger purpose than just protection against divorce. While yes, that is a very important one because the cost of divorce is ridiculously high. It is extremely high. So getting a prenup is a good investment. Um, but my biggest takeaway would be that you can use a prenup to set a solid foundation for your marriage. It gets you on the same page as your soon to be spouse, and it's just a good financial tool to build the marriage that you want to build with your person.
I love that. I love it. Couldn't have said it any better. Now, before we go, how can listeners reach you if they're interested in connecting?
Oh yeah, so my website, so www.theprenupqueen.com. I'm also on Instagram, but be warned, I dance on Instagram. So it's not like a completely professional page, even though, yes, I do talk about prenups a lot. There will be some like booty shaking, and you might see me in a bikini with some heels on, um, because I do enjoy dancing. Um, so they can find me there. They can find me on Instagram, or yeah, that's pretty much it. Those two are the best avenues to contact me.
Perfect. And we'll have your website and Instagram in the show notes so people can reach you there. And thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It was really great talking with you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
That's our show, folks. Thank you for listening to our Prenup Lawyer. Make sure to like and subscribe, and feel free to drop a comment below. Follow us on Instagram at Our Prenup Lawyer, and listen to us on Spotify, iHeart, Apple Podcasts, Audible, and watch us on YouTube. See you guys next time.